113?
113.
113?
On 10-1-3. 1-10-1. 10-1-3.
Yeah.
Is that it for our small talk?
We could talk about the missing couch or how we're still here.
Yeah. No, I keep on thinking, so I'm trying to integrate the Osho book on my second reiteration. And he like emphasizes, and Osho, for those who are not familiar, just talks about tantric teaching. He's not the Tantra inventor, but he just talks about tantric teaching. And he talks about there's a passage that he talked about somebody coming to Buddha, like one of the enlightened sages from wherever coming to Buddha, and the Buddha's like, oh, you have reached enlightenment and whatever, and he's like, oh, now you can go, and he's like, but I don't want to go. I want to bask in your presence, like. So once you reach Buddha, basically, like he was gonna go, like he reached Buddha because he was ready to go, but he didn't want to go because he was wanting to bask in the presence of the Buddha. I think that's what the story was. And and so the teaching, the tantric teaching, goes into like describing or explaining that as long as you're here, that means you're not ready to go.
What?
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 What do you mean?
You keep giving me funny looks.
I'm not giving you funny looks.
Okay. Once you're here, you're not ready to go?
If you're still here, then you're not ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if
you're still here, like on Earth, or like,
I mean, however Tantra interprets that, you can interpret it in all kinds of ways. But we will be having this podcast until we will no longer have to have this podcast. But the time we no longer have to have this podcast, we might or might not be still here.
Wow. We may or may not have a couch.
He still had to be the couch. No, I spent like 10 or 15 minutes looking at the couch, and it turned out to be very stressful. And I was like, this is not supposed to be stressful. So I just abandoned the whole couch idea until the time is ready. Like I will surrender into the timing of the couch, and maybe
Black Friday. That's when we'll get a couch.
And maybe the couch will pop up magically.
Honestly, this thing's going to release right before the Tuesday before Black Friday. So maybe then we'll get a good deal on a couch.
It's not the deal. It's just like
Cyber Monday.
Definitely still here. We're talking about Black Fridays and Cyber Mondays.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard something like that before. Not that exact story, but something to that effect of, you're here as long as you still need to be here, you're here, which is in my mind kind of similar to the when the student is ready, the master will appear, or the teacher will appear. Those are in the same neighborhood in my mind. Like, well, that's all under the big umbrella of the universe delivers to you what you need when you need it.
It's like not previous podcast.
Yeah, not necessarily what you want, but it's
like divine timing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. No. So yeah. So because I'm still trying to integrate the book. One of the chapters in there, because I'm reading a second time around, I'm like looking at it differently. And one of the chapters in there talks about like a mindset, and so the book this particular book that I'm reading is actually him interpreting a tantric poem or song, a tantric song, and then each chapter is him going like let's say verse by verse, kind of digesting what he thinks the meaning is behind this tantric teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the poem lines talks about the king and the warrior, and not with all the three-dimensional nuances of the king of the warrior, but like archetypal, I guess, nuances of the king of the warrior.
Right. And king and warrior and are two of the like four main Jungian archetypes. There's also the lover, and there's also
I'm not
I don't
again
remember.
familiar with Jung.
I don't remember, but
The Fool or the
see,
Magician.
It might be the Magician. I know there's a lot of overlap with tarot there. It might be the Magician. I think it's the Magician. I don't think it's the Fool, because they're like positive archetypes, but each archetype then has a like it has the proper expression of it, the healthy individuated expression of it, and then it has like the unhealthy expression in like the negative way, and then the unhealthy expression in the like overly positive way. So like the king, you can imagine like a wise king. We're going way off topic, aren't we?
We are, because once again, you're splitting the idea into duality.
Okay.
But that is not how he meant. That like the teachings of the king and the warrior is not, the goal is not to split of duality, is how you approach the universe.
Okay.
And that is why I have a problem with Jung. Because the second you start going into his teachings, that automatically locks you into a split of duality, into character play and split of duality. As opposed to what this is trying to do is teach you the overarching approach to the universe, right? Like if you were to be walking, and how do you view your walking without duality? So like energetically, you would have to ascend to a higher vibratory field in order to even be able to interpret this.
Okay.
And Jung purposely forces you to go elsewhere, which I have a huge problem with that.
Right. He gives you a spectrum.
But there's no spectrum. There's the essence of self and oneness. And if there's any, I think this is why I get so now I'm getting off topic because I get all riled up about it. If there's any teaching that teaches you that the way to self is through exploration of duality and understanding the duality, that would be the wrong teaching.
Is king versus warrior not a duality?
Mm-mm. No, I mean, the reason why I say they're archetypal is, I guess, because you said Jung is archetypal, but it is the way you walk the plane.
Is it
the baseline of self?
But is it like an either or?
Is it either or? Maybe, I don't know. Let's talk about it and see if it is an either or.
Okay.
And see where it goes. I mean, I think it's actually, so when you are disseminating into 3-dimensional space, right? You, through the belief system that you have, which is embedded in duality, right? Like the lack thereof comes out of duality, right? So we come here, and I'm talking about your and my experience, not experience of the younger generations before us, or
right.
like before us. Did I say
After.
before us? No, I meant to say before us. I think I'm interpreting time backwards. Okay, so when you and I come in, right? Our goal is to stay blind into this river, right? In order to then oh wait, I'm completely away from self. Let me find self and oneness, right? But as you're swimming with this river, the essence of you, like how you perceive yourself, is split in duality. So that is the essence of us. So Jung is right in essence that you have to realize, wait, I'm splitting the entire world in duality. And the goal is to recognize that everything that I approach is split, and then very quickly start to reach a point of self where you're recognizing what is oneness and why do I split the world in duality. And no, again, did not read Jung, do not know anything about Jung. Only thing I know is the things you tell me, which trigger me. And so then
that's my job.
Yeah. So, but like I have this internal, and it could be pain body related as well, push against it's not even incompleteness. It is incompleteness, but it's almost like incompleteness through deceit. I don't know why. I'm saying this from my intuitive reading. Like there's a deceit built into either his teaching or how we have learned to interpret the teaching. I don't know. And so therefore it actually throws us off course and dives us deeper into duality as opposed to taking the intent and just rising above. It's like a yin and yang. You know, you can spend the entire lifetime swimming in the separation and the light and the dark and the meaning of both. But nobody ever goes, no, you have to rise above it.
Almost like the same way that like maybe Yogananda or Steiner were on a good track, but then, you know, years later, Foundations took it over, and then it's all
maybe
not exactly. Jesus maybe had a good message to begin with, but now
maybe,
you know,
maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
People leading the Crusades,
like right. Like religion at the baseline has love and light in it, but then the message is taken over and corrupted for misuse and actually taking people further away from love and light.
Right.
So I don't know what is it about Jung, if it was him, because I don't know anything about him, or if it is how we took the teaching and continued on forward with it.
Right.
But there's deceit in it.
Right. Everything I haven't read any original Jung myself. It's just kind of like Cliff's Notes type things on websites.
Yeah, like, you know, Steiner, right? People, and there's not much negative you can say about Steiner. Like you could say he's crazy, but like everyone's crazy.
Right.
Do you know what I'm like? That's the whole point of you, is to be crazy in your own beautiful way. So yeah, there's nothing negative you can say, except that people have taken his teachings and almost became like maniacal. Is that the word? Maniacal about it. Do you know what I mean? Like it has to be this way, and you know the corners have to be round, and there's a whole school, and there's the regiment of the school. Do you know what I mean? Like you can take on the essence,
right?
Or you can like become obsessed with it,
right? I mean, we've talked about this before. Is like my personal philosophy, I guess. It's just this little like, ooh, I like this bit of Jung, and I like this bit of Christianity, and I like this bit of Buddhism, and I just a whole bunch of just stuff that jives with me.
But there's this flow.
Yeah, it
right?
isn't.
You know, but
it
there's a flow.
It isn't like,
wait,
oh well,
like,
Jung said this, so that means this is 100% true, and anything else is false. No, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm rolling through teaching, like as I have a book, I'm basically always kind of, you know, noodling over whatever the ideas are. And then the Osho's case, same thing. Like obviously the man is extremely flawed, and he says all these terrible things that are sexist and racist and prejudice and judgmental. And so the essence of this human being, obviously, you know, not enlightened. But it doesn't mean that I don't take his take on Tantra on the sacred passage,
right?
And can disconnect himself from his interpretation of the passage, and then just run with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's this like surrendering to recognition that everybody is on their own journey, and everybody's lost in their own way, and this is his way of getting to the core, and then my way is, you know, still saying, oh, that's kind of sexist, but you know, within that is like the societal interpretation of me to say what's sexist, right? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, anyways, I know we already talked about all of the terrible things he says on the book. But anyway, with Jung, right? If you talk about the king, so the reason why I wanted to use word archetype is I wanted to have an inserted energy, and maybe you can go into that space, an inserted energy of a type, like an archetypical arc, like king at its essence,
right?
Not the nuance and the duality and the splits and the nonsense that goes along with it, and warrior at the essence, right? So this vibratory field, and we will talk about like what a warrior is and what a king is, but I'm not trying to dive into like the nuances of right and wrong or money versus poor. None of that.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I was taking it. Was, you know, there's the ideal archetype of a king and a warrior.
Yeah, no. In this case, there's no such thing as ideal. Let's just discuss what if we think of a warrior, what a warrior is, and if we think of the king, what the king is.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean by ideal, like the idea you have of it. Not like.
Did you say ideal or idea?
I said ideal.
Oh yeah,
but I guess there's
ideal
kind of
is a dualistic
loaded,
split,
right?
Yeah,
but
so
like
idea.
when you have an idea of when you have the idea of a king,
yeah,
that kind of is in my mind the same as the ideal king, though.
I think the purpose of the word ideal separates you from puts you into a duality, meaning that there's such thing as not, and I don't want to be there.
Okay,
right. That is what. Right. If you're not at the vibratory field where there is wholeness in one concept, then you by default start to bring in all the arguments and all the things that are counterproductive to even the discussion itself. Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
Like dualistically splitting concepts of like, well, how can they be this way if it's this way? Do you know what I mean? Like I don't, because that's where you will go if you're in a dualistic split. Like, oh well, I have to behave this way because blah. Do you know what I mean? There's the pain body justification that gets split in there. So I don't want to go there. Okay. So maybe go into a higher vibratory field and we'll talk about the warrior first. And so when I read this, the reason why it resonated so much is because me being a dualistic split of unsafe and then therefore having to do something about it matches up with the archetype of the warrior, right? So the warrior is the title, but then there's a what that you do under it out of unsafety is the cause, right?
Does he say unsafety?
No, I'm saying unsafety. Because it resonated, and I don't know, it's just, I found it so beautiful and I'm hoping you'll be able to tune into it just like we were last time when we talked about it. But the goal of the warrior is to achieve something through combat.
Combat or action?
Well, warrior combat, but then if you bring it into everyday scenario like me, action, right? So me functioning in the mindset of a warrior automatically builds in this very obvious, and this goes back to our Empire, Victim, and Resistance podcast that we had maybe like a year ago or so. This is the exact same thing, except this is like, it like summarizes it all into like one aspect. Any action then that I take as a warrior, I can see lack of wholeness in the behavior as a warrior because I'm taking action because I feel unsafe because X. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it seems very, very tactical. Everything is, outcome driven. Like that. I need to accomplish A, B, and C, possibly because unsafety. Probably because of unsafety. So I need to do X, Y, Z in order to accomplish A, B, and C. So I'm going to go set my mind to that and go do that, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, unsafety is, well, the reason why I say unsafety is because everything else is just a flavor of unsafety, right? Lack of freedom is a flavor of unsafety. Lack of love is actually unsafety. Lack of trust is actually unsafety. Lack of, what else is there out there? I know I named what we have. Lack of being good is unsafety, right? So everything is just, again, reiterating our whole scheme that everything is just unsafety. And so if I had to sit there and go, how does a warrior behave, this is the discussion that Osho had in his book. Yeah, it is. He doesn't say this, but I say this. It is out of unsafety. Or they need to do something. But the truth is the need to do something is from unsafety. Right?
Right.
It's either you take orders to do something so you can be good, or it's either you go actively and do something to defend so then you feel safe or the people who you're protecting feel safe.
Right. And I guess giving someone else orders is maybe just a half a step above that.
No,
The general is still a warrior. He's just not charging the battlefield himself. He's telling other people to do it.
Yeah. So you're somewhere.
He's just slightly promoted.
Yeah.
But he's still in it.
So what I'm going to say is think about the concept of the king, right? no one is giving orders to the king.
Right.
So the king is not behaving because somebody else said so.
Right. That even the general is behaving because the king told him to do it.
Yeah. And the king is not, the king will not be worried about other minions' opinion of him. Therefore, his action would be only for himself, out of himself.
Right.
Right. And I'm separating out like other kingdoms in this make-believe world. Other kingdoms do not exist, right? King's at the top.
Emperor of the universe.
Sure. Emperor of the universe. Right. So at the top, in the scenario, this make-believe world, there's no one else. There's no one above the king, right? So it's not like another kingdom and then they're fighting. No, just king at the top. And so if you're at the top, one, you're not concerned about other people's opinion of you, right? Because there's no threat.
Honestly, like God might be a better word than king.
Yeah, but God brings in like a religious
I know, but like
stereotypes.
if you think about like in the olden days, like Viracocha or Ahura Mazda or something.
But it's so removed from a three-dimensional human interpretation.
It's hard for humans to go.
It's hard for us to go, well, if you're God, then why in this? I mean, the truth is, if you're God, none of this fucking matters.
Yeah.
Right? You're already not in a three-dimensional space.
Right.
So why are we even sitting here? So it almost removes the need for us to even have this discussion. So we're not there yet.
Thanks for listening.
Right? So as the king, then you don't take orders from anybody else because you don't care about anybody else's opinion, right? But as a warrior, you do take orders from somebody else because of X, whatever that X happens to be. It's either because the general said so, or because your honor depends on it, because you want to be a good boy and please your mommy, whatever any of this nonsense is, right? So there's already this disconnect between action. Why are you taking action? And it comes down to, at the end, the king would only take action if it is something that is in alignment and pleasure within himself. And when I say pleasure, I don't mean
hedonistic pleasure.
Yeah, hedonistic pleasure. I mean like the essence of his expression can be seen and derived from the status or the cognitive interpretation of how much pressure of self would you feel as a king to behave? And the answer, if you can tune into that tidbit, it's none. Like, there will be no need to behave in any kind of way because of anybody else or anything else. There's no lack. There's no unsafety. You are at the top of the pyramid and you make up the rules.
Is there like a responsibility to this king? So a king is not really a great analogy because in theory, a king is responsible for his kingdom and making sure people are fed, I guess.
No. In this case, there's no responsibility.
Collecting taxes, I don't know.
Yeah, there's no responsibility. Like
you're king of your own private island. You don't have to worry about anybody else.
Do you see all the scenarios you would bring in as an excuse of why, even as a king, you don't have the freedom to behave?
I'm trying to, because I like analogy. I'm trying to come up with an analogy that works because No,
you're trying to come with an analogy that breaks the scenario in order to make the king scenario not true. This is exactly what I said that you would do with the Jungian archetype. Okay. Which is fine because I want to maybe showcase the inability of self to even enter into the space where you don't give a shit about anybody else's opinion. I'm not saying you don't have compassion. That is, we will put compassion to the side. But why would you behave in a certain way if you're at peace with self, you're self-fulfilled, you have all the abundance, you don't have anyone to rule over, you don't have anyone to consider, not because you hate them, just because there's no one.
You don't have anybody to rule over or to rule over you?
Even to rule over.
Okay.
Right? You're at the top. There's no such thing as ruling. You're at the top. Right? There's no
right. Which is hard to concretify in this 3D world.
Yeah, but can you step back?
Yeah.
This is what my goal is. It will be impossible to relate to the king because right now what's happening to your brain and most of everybody's brain is the three-dimensional space comes in with all of these scenarios of why this is not going to work.
Right. So
why me being in this space is not going to work, because your 3-dimensional space is fighting for survival in the warrior mindset.
Is the difference then that the warrior cares what other people think and the king doesn't? Is that the main fundamental difference?
Yeah, but why would you care about what other people think?
I mean, on safety. But is that the difference between the king and the warrior?
One of them, right? I mean, one of the differences, warrior really is concerned about how he's perceived in order to belong in rank, in order to climb up the rank ladder, in order to please the general, in order to please himself as a self-esteem of a soldier.
Is the other one that the warrior has a job he has to do?
I mean, yeah, there's there's responsibility.
But the king doesn't.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Think about this, like, if this is a king and he has everything and all of his needs are met and there's pure abundance and there's no other kingdoms, everything is perfect, right? Like, we're entering into the state of perfection. What are you going to do with your life other than something that actually pleases your soul?
Right.
As opposed to doing something out of lack.
Right.
And this is the comparison that I want to make. There's a way to tune in into the frequency of the king. And I say this, separate yang yin out of this, right? Tune in into tantric frequency of the king, this scenario that we just painted, right? There is no lack, pure self-abundance in every way, both love, physical abundance, beauty abundance, whatever you want to think. You're at the hierarchy, at the peak of your being. If there is no lack, then what are you doing with yourself? Out of which space are you then behaving if you were in that space? And I would wager to say, like, whenever I tune into that frequency, you're just doing things out of love of your heart. Like, oh, look, I'm going to go and walk around the garden and smell the flowers. Not because I have to, because that is just what fulfills my heart with joy.
Right.
I'm going to go and sit on my bed and eat Turkish delights all day. Okay, well, that, I'm doing that because that fulfills my soul. Yeah, we don't have any Turkish delights. Right? But do you see what I mean? There's this is the contemplation. How much of our action is spent being taken from a space of any kind of lack due to unsafety? And most of the people don't want to admit to unsafety,
right?
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
Opinions of others, behaving so others perceive you a specific way, feels unsafe. Behaving a certain way that is expected in the ranks of military or at the workforce, it feels unsafe if you don't, right? Pleasing your subordinates and showing them an example, how to lead by example, it equates to you being unsafe because, look, they're not going to follow your command if you're not a certain way, right? Yeah. If you don't go out and fight hard enough, then you die. That's unsafe, right? If you don't train to hard enough, so you don't have the training behind you, that's unsafe.
Right.
The split, maybe when you ask the question, is there a duality? The split is to showcase what it is like to be in the split and what it is like not to be in the split.
Right.
And that is the showcase. So the warrior within itself is an example of a split duality where the split is there because things are unsafe. So warrior 1 is unsafe. And then because of the unsafety, he splits his duality. Actions are taken out of the unsafety and the split. And the king does not have a split duality.
Right. No, okay. I gotcha.
So if that answers the question.
Yeah.
It's right, in essence, it summarizes the entire essence of yang into one character. Let's leave the nonsense. Do we want to function out of a split duality? What does it feel like to function out of a split duality, right? Or here's oneness.
Right.
Here's essence of self.
I mean, because I have at times been in that, I guess, king-like state where whatever I'm doing because it is, it is my passion. It is just, I'm doing it for the love of it. That is unfortunately not the majority of my time. but I know what that is like. And it's, there's like there's a flow state that you get into. It's like, it doesn't even matter if it succeeds or doesn't. Success is kind of irrelevant. It's just
doing.
You're doing, you could call it your art or your craft for the purpose of doing the art or the craft. And there isn't even necessarily an audience for it, other than you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the love of doing it.
Right. But in a king state,
Right.
he doesn't care.
Right.
Him
Right.
doing an art piece, opinions of others do not matter.
Right. He could chuck it in the fire. He could hang it in his castle. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a nice place to be.
No, but I want to say, the goal is not to feel the space and then go,
That's a nice place to be.
yeah, that's a nice place to be, right? The goal is to use this as a tool
Right.
to recognize what frequency are you functioning in.
Right. I mean, because we have, jobs and work to do. And it's like, there have been times when I've approached, whatever project it is for whatever company or client or whatever, I've approached them in both of those manners before. And sometimes it's just like, okay, well, I've got to do this because gotta have to make the money, or gotta do this so that, keep the customer happy, or whatever, or, well, there's a time crunch and we need to get the house fixed up or whatever. And then there's I'm just having a blast doing this.
Yeah.
Right. So I see how it can be applied to probably everything, right? I've cleaned the house from both sides of that before too.
Yeah.
I've played with the kids from both sides of that.
Yeah. What I notice is like the change in the state of pranic flow. Like so if we function in lack and in the warrior state, like the nervous system is jittery. Like I'm not a scientist, so I don't have all the fancy terms to use in order to figure out like cortisol is up or dopamine or whatever, right? But the nervous system, right, is so relaxed and open, right, that there's no actual tension in the body. Like I can actually feel my prana flow and be open and receptive to the state of being that I am in, versus in the warrior state, the nervous system is so collapsed and so tense.
No, I notice. I will notice that I will be all tensed up. I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on? And there's just like relaxation exercise combined with trying to figure out what it is that's has my attention, I guess.
Yeah, but if there's tension, right, that something has your attention in a negative way.
Yeah.
And then most of the time, we're just, what I want to say is the reason why we're having this discussion is we're blind to that tension, right? And then we die, right? I mean, I know.
And then you die unsafe.
No, but that's.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm not even saying unsafe, like cognitively die unsafe. I'm saying just like literally the tension leads to contraction of all organ systems, pranic flow. So then the energy doesn't flow to your kidneys. The energy doesn't flow to your heart. The energy doesn't flow to your knees.
We watched that thing on Gaia by Bruce Lipton. He literally says that this is physically what the body does. What stress and cortisol does to the body is it just damages everything inside.
Yeah, but you don't have to be whatever he is to just recognize literally when you tense up the body, right? And like when, I don't know if anybody has done any kind of yoga, right? When in the yoga, sometimes they ask you to like tense it all up and then just like release it all, right?
Yeah.
You can just lay there and go, okay, let me do an exercise of tensing and let me do an exercise of releasing.
All right. Well, there's not only that, there's before that, there's during the tensing, and then there's the releasing. And the before that is somewhere in the middle. It's not like you went from relaxed to tense to relaxed. You went from medium to tense to relaxed.
Well, I mean, ideally, if you've done enough yoga, you're not that tense to begin with.
Yeah, but it's still not as relaxed as it is deliberately tensing everything up and then deliberately releasing it.
Yeah, but that's just conscious intent in order to release it.
Yeah.
And you're using like a subliminal messages to the system that you have an intent to release tension. And when you set an intent to release tension, if you're interpreting reality in a physical space, then you would go, oh, I need to tense up physical space. So you tense up your body in order to then release tension in the physical space. But all it comes down to is you pay attention to the flow of prana, right? And then you cognitively program your body to relax.
Yeah.
I'm going even higher right now in frequency. Maybe I should lower. But you can at any point tense up your body or just sit there in awareness, right? Like on the previous podcast, I mentioned the Gabramati thing of like pausing and going, wait, tell me what you feel right now, right? And
Yeah.
it's just that. If you sit there and you go, oh yeah, I feel tense, like you could feel if we just pause. And this is the weirdest thing. Like we're not taught to pause and feel our body.
Right. No, you taught me that before we found Gabramate, his teachings. But yeah, it's weird because it's like every emotional discomfort that you feel has a physical component of it. You know, there'll be a lump in the throat or something in the chest or an upset stomach, or usually for me, it's usually somewhere along here, along the chakra line, or a headache or pressure in the eye or whatever it is. You know, everything's got some sort of physical expression of a of emotional trauma
Or current state of unawareness.
Sure.
Right? Like if you just pause at any moment, you know, unless you're not here anymore, then chances are there's tension somewhere in the body, right? And that tension is some sort of stuckness. Then you go, wait, why am I tense over there? Like what is causing this tension there, right? And if you actually allow yourself to have a cognitive thought deeper than the numbness, right? If you just go into the feeling and it's uncomfortable, but you allow that uncomfort to come through and you can verbalize that thought, right? Chances are it's some sort of like, oh, because I'm stressed out about X. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like such a great way to behave.
What's funny to me is that, you know, I've been doing something like that for a while now. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I'm like, ooh, I'm worked up about something. And I'm like, what is it? And it takes me a little while to try to figure it out. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, it's the, you know, whatever.
But it's like you don't even realize the body is in tension over a thing.
And I'm like, oh, it's like a, you know, some stupid thing, you know, that will take X amount of minutes or hours to do. And, you know, something that needs to be resolved. Right. And then sometimes I'm like, it's not me. It is not my tension. I have taken on somebody else's anxiety, you know, someone near me or some sort of mass anxiety, you know, God forbid you read the news, you're just going to take on whatever the headline is today. And, you know, you're just like, you know, whether it's this deliberate or whether it's some sort of minor version of that, it's not zero.
Yeah.
And literally everybody is just walking around with some level of this, from their own stuff and or collective stuff.
Yeah, collective consciousness vibrating in.
And it's like just identifying it, I find, releases it largely, if not completely, because it's bizarre. It's like my psyche is like, oh, there's something unresolved. I need to I need to make Elliot tense up in order to remind him of that.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And so if I literally just write it down on my list of things to do, that takes care of it for me most of the time. It's like this weird, I somehow have trained my body and or mind to that's my like alarm clock of I've got to do something. Is I will feel anxious about it until it's either done or it's on my list of things to do. Once it's on my list of things to do, I no longer feel like I have to keep it in my psyche.
Yeah, but realize, I mean, one, yes.
I know that doesn't apply to everything, but to me, that a lot of my stuff is just, I remember I need to do that. Okay. And it'll just sit there, not in the front of my mind, but somehow in the limbic system, just like squirting cortisol into me as some sort of perverted reminder.
Two things. So yes, I agree. Everything is completely correct. But at the same time, recognize that just because you have trained yourself to somehow remove the trigger by writing it down,
right,
doesn't mean that.
Right, because I know what it is it's unsafe. I feel unsafe because whatever it is hasn't.
Things to
do. And that, at some point, I realized that this list is infinite and will never be zero. Like, I used to have this idea that, at some point, there's, whenever I get my, get the job or get the promotion or get the house or whatever, it's like, whenever my list is zero, then I can finally relax. It's never zero. There's stuff on the list that I will probably never do in my life. It's just, wouldn't it be nice if type stuff. And so coming to peace with that.
Yeah, but maybe the recognition should be, I feel stress. My belief system is such that if there's things to do, I feel stressed out because it's unsafe. Because I'm not doing it, and that makes me bad. Yeah,
there's a bit of that. Yeah,
yeah. Just right. Mm-hmm. That will wipe out the entire thing altogether, both the list and the tension of reminder things to do. Like, right, you don't need the list, and you don't need to sit there stressing out about the chairs and the servers and the racks and the mold. Do you know what I mean? And the mice and the whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Right. There's my list.
Yeah, that's your list. If you just recognize, I vibrate in such way, right? This is going back to the warrior split duality type of way. Because me being bad is unsafe, right? Like if I'm bad, I have a thing about being bad, right? So if I'm bad, that's unsafe because then I'm not lovable and everybody rejects me and I'm alone and, that's unsafe. One of the filters, right? Because you start from the bottom, right? You go, okay, it's unsafe. I feel unsafe. How? If I'm not doing things I'm supposed to do, that makes me bad. So that's the filter now we're working with, right? You recognize this little filter. And you go, okay, that means anything in life that falls under the category of I am bad feeds into the unsafety. Mm-hmm. And anything under the category of I'm bad, and in this case, not doing things that I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
Because a good husband does this, or a good homeowner does this, or a good engineer does this, or a good father does this, or a good... What did I miss? Person sure. Does this, or social person who's socially revered does this, right? So all of those are like microfilters that split out of how do I identify myself as bad,
right?
So in that case, is me being perceived as bad by a third party that is either relevant or irrelevant,
or even by myself,
or by yourself, is unsafe, and then therefore action needs to be taken. And in your case, action needs to be taken could it simply be, I have to go and do the shit, or I have to write them on a list.
Yeah.
But both of them are actions.
Yeah.
But I would reverse that whole thing by going, right, because you could see how you can unravel the entire belief path if you go, my generalized trigger is if I don't do things that I'm supposed to be doing, I will be perceived as bad and therefore it's unsafe.
No, as I've been trying to sit in the discomfort over the last, month or two, whatever. I've noticed that. I've noticed, look, there's, I feel some sort of anxiety. Why is that? Because it's like, there's something I need to remember to do, whatever it is. And maybe it needs to be done, maybe it doesn't. That's irrelevant. But I have connected it to, if I have this sense that if I don't do whatever it is, that is either something bad will happen, if it's something that is urgent, I guess, or it's, I am bad in any of those ways that you just mentioned. Right. And yeah, I mean, realizing that really does dissolve that to a large degree. It isn't gone, but
the goal is not,
the goal is not to dissolve it, but it does.
The goal is to acknowledge
side
this pathway.
Right. It's like, yeah, and offer compassion to yourself over the whole, look, that is how I feel. Take away the judgment. I feel this way. That is not good, bad, right, wrong. That is just how I feel.
That happens to be my truth.
That just happens to be a fact, period.
Yeah.
So don't judge it and just accept it and offer it love, because my whole life I've been like, no, that's not me. I don't want to be bad. That's bad to feel that I'm bad. Right? Kind of like doubling down on it. Which is, very much like that, was it last time you mentioned Gabor Mate's thing? Right. How do I make it? Will it ever go away?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is the wrong approach.
It's not the wrong. It's just recognize if you want it to go away, you're actively trying to not acknowledge that it's there.
Yeah. And
the whole point of gnosis or self-recognition is to acknowledge everything that is keeping you from peace, to be at the point of the king.
Yeah.
Right? Not because the king is the goal, not because I have to become the king. No, it's just this is the only thing that matters. Like, king is not a status and the warrior is not a status. This has nothing to do with like getting somewhere. The only thing this has to do, the entire analogy is simply there as a tool to see, is my prana flowing? Am I open to my energetic expression of self, or something causing me tension?
Right. And you can be operating in king mode in some areas of your life and warrior mode in other areas of your life.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, you can be totally aware and have integrated portion of yourself that is like, oh, look, I recognize that this is a pathway that I tend to see as my worldview. And I give myself grace over it, and I allow it to be my truth. And I have a tendency to start oh, look, I'm viewing the world through this pathway once again. And you don't have to sink into unsafety just because you recognize it. You simply go, oh, look, this tends to make me feel unsafe. Isn't that interesting, or isn't that funny? And I will allow that unsafety to be there as I continue to participate in this action. That's what I've been trying to do. It's like, I have this tendency. The tendency is, to me, it's almost easier to go, okay, it is unsafe, period, right? So the warrior will be functioning out of space of unsafety. And then therefore the action taken is there to remediate the feeling of some sort, tension of some sort, right? And so then I go, okay, I just skip to the end, just nonsense. I feel unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
What flavor do I feel unsafe of in this moment? How is this making me feel unsafe?
Right.
And that cuts away so much nonsensical speaking.
Right. There's a lot of layers in the middle that, like, I used to really enjoy. All the way down, all the dots down to it. And now it is kind of like, well, I could do that, but that feels unproductive at this point. Now I am unsafe. I used to start at the top and go down, but now it is, I'm unsafe. Is it because I feel bad? There's only a handful above that.
Well, no, point out that when you cut through the nonsense and you don't work your way down and you go, okay, this is unsafety. The second you admit that this is unsafety, it actually opens the door to where it makes it easier for you to explain what flavor, why.
That's true. I mean, to begin with, I think the top down was helpful because I got to trace things, and that was eye-opening for me to go, oh, look, I'm behaving, this way, or I think this.
No, you still trace things up.
Yeah, but I would trace things down.
But you still trace things up. Like, it's still a trace. But here's what it does. it actually changes your frequency of acceptance to where the trace from bottom on up becomes easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
You still do the trace. I would still
No,
recommend
I'm
doing
still
the
doing
trace.
the trace, but I'm doing it from the bottom up instead of the top down now.
Yeah, but the bottom up already allows you to enter this space where you're vulnerable and you're at your truth.
Right. Because
so the chances of you lying to yourself from bottom on up, because here's what will happen.
If you trace top down, you might not end it on safety.
Well,
That's the
because
danger.
Because the goal is you will lie to yourself. You will. The goal is to get past yourself, and the only person that there is to get past is yourself. So over 40 years, in our case, we have designed all kinds of awesome ways in order not to allow us to see this nonsense.
Yeah, but if you start off with, well, shoot, I feel unsafe.
But feel
I just
it.
do.
Like
I actually feel unsafe.
Like actually feel the unsafe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like allow yourself to go, oh yeah, look at that. It's just all in knots right now.
And then go, well, why do I feel unsafe? I feel unsafe because I feel like I'm bad. I feel like I'm not loved. I feel like I'm, like whatever it is, and build up from there to your action.
Yeah.
To your thoughts, to your whatever.
Even however much you need to build up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you don't need to build up. Sometimes the thing at the top completely disappears. Yes. The second you go, oh, this makes me feel unsafe.
Yeah. To me,
oh, okay.
Yeah. Usually I can just go up one level. I feel unsafe. I feel like I'm a bad person if I don't clean out the garage or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, there's steps in the middle, but those steps are irrelevant. I can just tell that is now a straight line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think recognizing it, it's almost like this is, we spoke with someone not too long ago and I brought this up, but I'll bring it up again. But to begin with, when I say to somebody, oh, well, you behave this way because deep down you feel unsafe. Oh my gosh.
There's a balk to that.
There's a huge balk to that. There's like, for somebody.
There was a balk for me to that.
For somebody to hear me say that and then start to accept that as their truth.
Right.
Oh my gosh. If they could run, they would take off running. If they could scream, they would scream at me.
Right.
If they could beat me up, they would beat me up. There's a huge amount of balk to even there's not even a kindling of thought that would allow them to admit, oh, maybe this is truth.
To me, because you had always said that, your thing is unsafety. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't feel unsafe because I had it tied to like a physical starved to death type of unsafety. And I'm like, I have never in this incarnation starved to death. I've barely missed a meal in my life. That's just not the experience that I've had. But when we say unsafe, it's something more fundamental than that. It's like an existential unsafety that, yes, physical unsafety, whether you're, walking down a dark alley at night or don't have potatoes. Yes, those hit it too. But at the same time, it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to be liked by people. I might lose my job and all these things are various flavors of that root unsafety. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's community, maybe it's environmental, maybe it's social, maybe it's emotional or psychological, maybe it's spiritual. All of those things feed into this big bucket that we're calling unsafety. And I think unsafety is a very good word for that.
Yeah. Like a lot of people use the word fear.
Yeah.
And they think, okay, to begin with, whenever I channeled the book, fear was the word.
Right.
That was used, but I don't think it's deep enough.
Right. I mean, we've used them almost interchangeably, by saying, I'm afraid, I feel unsafe, in a sense, they're similar, but I think unsafe is better because lack of fear versus if you're not unsafe, you're just safe. And that's kind of like this, there's a peace in safety that is not necessarily in my mind the same thing as the peace in opposite of fear.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just semantics and you can pick whatever word works for you, but unsafe is
Well,
a great.
Fear is then what you are. Like, I'm unsafe, and then therefore I'm afraid.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Fear is almost the emotion that comes out of a sense of unsafety.
A sense of unsafety, yeah.
So they're related, borderline interchangeable, but whichever one hurts the most, that's the one you should use.
Well, I think word fear is too nebulous. And even though unsafety is very nebulous,
Yeah.
fear takes you a step above it and makes it like, okay, well, that's almost like undefinable to me.
Right. And
But
fear
if I'm afraid, then what?
Yeah, and fear is almost like, well, there's this idea.
That's how you react to safety.
There's this idea we shouldn't have fear. Fear feels like a reaction.
Yeah, you react
instead
to
of unsafety.
unsafety.
Feels like a state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fear makes you unsafe.
Yeah.
Or fear is what is a product when you feel unsafe.
Right. Fear is the effect, not necessarily the cause.
Yeah. Yeah, and the cause is unsafety.
Cause is unsafety. Because that is a state or condition that you are in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, to your point, and, looking at my upbringing and looking at your upbringing, unsafety is not obvious, right? How we have decided to take on unsafety has a million of different flavors to it.
Right.
But deep down, the child who felt unsafe at birth, right? Like at birth, you became unsafe. Not because it's anybody else's fault, but then you have formalized an idea that there's such thing as unsafety with the delay in feeding or diaper rashes or...
Right. As soon as you pop into this 3D world, you're, anywhere from, seconds to days away from dying, whether it's lack of air, lack of water, lack of food, lack of shelter. You're just the whole point of being here is, can I stave off death for another day?
Yeah.
Because death is in a sense the ultimate unsafety, right? We're all afraid we're going to die to some degree.
But the vibratory lock on unsafety goes beyond death. Do you know what I mean? Like for those people who are not afraid of dying.
There are plenty of things that at various points in my life, probably still now, have felt scarier than death.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like...
Well, that's why people commit suicide.
Right. There's this thing that's like, a whole bunch of people would die for their kids. I'll there's someone with a gun. I'll get between my son and the guy with the gun. That's not even hard to do. But they won't live for their kids. They won't, dedicate time to them and everything, because that's somehow harder than dying.
Wait, parents not living for their kids? How so?
Like, they'll work is more important.
Oh.
Something like that. Yeah. So like there are things that are either explicitly or implicitly harder or scarier than literally dying.
Yeah. Well, what I was referencing is when people commit suicide, it is because the current feeling of unsafety is more overwhelming than the idea of death.
Sure.
Like the emotional influx they have to the scenario of X, like, oh my gosh, my boyfriend dumped me or whatever, or like, oh heck, like I'm getting ready to go bankrupt and I'm losing everything I have. That scenario is worse energetically. The amount of unsafety it brings is bigger than just dying.
Yeah.
Right? Like you like trying to run away from that much overwhelm, but that much overwhelm has deposited itself and basically locked itself in the nebulous amount of unsafety that you felt as a child when you couldn't even identify it.
I'm reminded of this. I saw this thing on, I think, Instagram, and it was this guy. I'm sure maybe it was all just a setup. This guy's like, hey, what if I offered you $100 million? Would you take it? Yeah. What if the condition was you die tomorrow? They're like, no. They're like, okay, we've just established that tomorrow is worth more than $100 million. How great do you feel about that? And, it kind of,
Where does it go?
I don't remember, but it's, sure, tomorrow is worth, the idea that I will live to tomorrow is worth more than all the money in the world. Because,
Is the point of that to have them cherish today?
I think so. To just cherish the present moment, because you're alive, and that's worth more than any, physical stuff.
Yeah, but that negates the mental crisis that we're having about not realizing that how people feel about today is more painful than death.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some people who would say, yeah, okay, I'll take it.
Well, they'll say you take it, but then they calculate down like, 24 hours is not enough for me to spend $100 million. I need more time to enjoy that. Do you see what I mean?
Maybe.
If you gave them,
it depends on.
I think if you change that argument to a month, more than 50% of people would take it.
50%.
I bet.
Gosh.
You don't think so?
No, I think, at some point, 20 years, maybe you'll start getting people take it. Especially old people.
How about this? If you give them more time.
More money. Yeah.
$100 million is enough money to do whatever the fuck you want for a couple of years, right? So $100 million, and you stretch that time over, they will choose that.
Right. No, at some point, if you're old, or you're, terminal or something like that, that's
the obvious one. You will take it if you're terminal. You will take it even if you know you're dying. Like if you're terminal, if you have 3 months and somebody offers you $100 million right now and you die tomorrow, and you can pass as $100 million kids, those people will take it.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. Right.
Unless you cherish the 3 months you have left with your loved ones. I don't know.
Right.
It depends how much in scarcity you are, I guess.
Right. No, yeah.
I think the experiment is flawed, but
yeah.
But no, what I want to point out is I do think it is important to mention the amount of influx people would have of how much pain they feel in that unsafety can be extremely overwhelming and more scarier than death.
Yes. No, I've been there.
Right? Like if you were in the moment, oh my gosh, this is worse than the world ending. Do you know what I mean? That pain.
Yeah.
And so because we want to run away from pain all the time, not because we're cowards, but simply because our system reinforces numbing, right? Like we have numbed ourselves off, that most of the time we can't even feel the small tensions in our body because we're not even feeling the large ones. We're just numb from the entire essence of us. Because, in our case, we had spent 40 years swimming away from acknowledgement, right? But when you start to acknowledge, when you turn that corner and you start acknowledging what it is, you'll realize, everything that is numbness is simply me numbing off my nervous system to all of these influxes that I actually find threatening and unsafe. And the more you spend time acknowledging, look, here's another thing I find threatening and unsafe, and here's another thing I find threatening and unsafe, the more you allow the system to open into an energetic flow to where you're more likely to get into the deeper pathways of that unsafety.
Yeah.
But we're once again, I guess, discussing the warrior approach to it, right? But I think the easy way, if there's an easy solution, and I think this Tantra teaching does an excellent, like, to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is completely revolutionary, because instead of being lost in the details, you would go, okay, well, the warrior is lesser than somehow, right? Therefore unsafe. So action is done out of whatever. And the king is at the pure essence of self. And so if you can just connect the energy of pure essence of oneness to the idea that here's the king and here's an idea of lesser than that is the warrior, and you can pick any titles. I do think that titles are good because, like, stereotypically or culturally, there are all kinds of. I
like God, Emperor of the Universe. That's mine.
Yeah, but like then you argue like, okay, well, are you the only God? Do you know, like, there's like, if you said a definition.
That was supposed to be a joke.
Oh. Yeah. Well, you know, if you are an ascended being, right, there's no such thing as lack.
Yeah.
So to you to even enter into a space where you can perceive such thing as dualistic split of lack or unsafety would be completely impossible. So Emperor of the Universe or God, like we're not, like, why are we even having this discussion?
Right. No, I mean, it's the problem is that all, we have these words which are just symbols for ideas, and king and warrior are both kind of loaded with whatever humans' idea of kings are and warriors are. But
Yeah,
but
I want to unload the nonsense that is below it.
Yeah.
And then to your point, like, is it still a duality split? And just realize warrior is in duality. It is yin and yang, still unmet, and you're struggling here, and you're struggling there, and you're fighting here, and you're fighting there. But with the king, you're at the point of oneness. There's a frequency of wholeness within it.
Right. Yeah. I guess my point is that you've got to change. You've got to let go of your definition of or your idea of what a king has been. If I had asked you what is a king yesterday, it's not really that. Right. It's,
But you can start to tune into the energy where there is no lack.
Right.
Where there's no unsafety.
Right. You need to, yes. It's,
can
you embody this idea of a king?
Well, king has an army to protect them. So there's no unsafety. Right? King has abundant amount of gold coins, right? There's no unsafety. King has plenty of potatoes. King has plenty of Turkish delights. King has plenty of gardens and flowers and, I don't know, women. I don't know if you're a man, I guess, or men.
Harem.
Harem, sure. And they all love him unconditionally, not because they have to. Do you know what I mean? No one's trying to kill him in this scenario. Do you know what I mean? So here's what it is. Human essence will still stick in all the reasons why the king mindset or king analogy will fail. So your three-dimensional space will creep out of the warrior and go, oh, well, this is why this doesn't work, and this is why this doesn't work, right? That will be three-dimensional space of yours that is still in unsafety, trying to figure out why king is still not the right scenario. But what I want to point out is there will be a space of you that finds something in this idea of the king that you go, oh, wait, he would have this and I don't have that. So that aspect, you will go, oh, yeah, I can see how he would feel different about this than I do. And that is what I want, I guess, everybody or you and I to concentrate on.
Right.
There will be something within the king that you're currently not participating in, where you would see that would be completely irrelevant to his state of being.
Right.
And that's the whole point of this discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. As you go about your day, as you're doing stuff, or, as you explore your thoughts and feelings, it's like you can see, oh, I'm approaching this from that warrior standpoint, or, oh, look at that. I'm actually in a king mode on right now, at least.
Yeah. So, right, because we're still here, there's no absolute definition that allows the king to be the king, period. The warrior will be always creeping in and go, okay, well, there's unsafety about this and there's unsafety about that. And it will always be creating these little stories where even the king is not safe. But the truth is, in this scenario, this is a mind exercise for you to go into a space that you're not familiar with, but you go, wait, but if I had this, how would I act if I had this? And then you would go, oh, look, I am acting out of lack, out of unsafety, right? And that act out of lack of unsafety then signifies to you, I am not in the place of wholeness and expanded self of being. I'm still in the warrior mindset, fighting for something, right?
Yeah.
Since you and I think you and I had this discussion like a little less than a week ago, but almost a week ago. But like since then, I've been thinking about like even the dreams that I have that feel like they're dreams of abundance. I like compare them to the scenario and I go, well, no, look, it's still lack. There's still lack, right? And I'm starting to identify all of this tension that I bring into my body whenever I interpret something out of dualistic split versus a vibratory field of oneness, right? And there's this huge, I mean, like, if nothing else, ability of the body to relax into the present moment. Like, I'm noticing that, right? You know, Eckhart Tolle obviously is a huge teacher of that, but I always struggled with his teaching because it sounds so simple, and he's like, he just says it and it's so simple, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just such an idiot. And I realize is when he says that, when you would be in the present moment is when you do not feel unsafe about the present moment being unsafe.
Yeah.
And so you cannot be in the present moment if you feel unsafe.
Yeah, right.
But you cannot identify that. You cannot be present and then therefore at peace if there's a tension within you causing you not to feel safe. And so it's like, there's this like, a lot of people who hear him and he says it like, well, just be in the present. And people are like, I know I'm in the present right now, but why in the fuck can I not be? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's this like, if you were in duality, you'd be like, fail yourself. Why in the fuck can I not be in the present moment? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
but that's the obvious reason is like, I struggle with that because for me, there was so much unsafety that even though I understood deep down what he means by being present in the present moment, it is like, might as well be him being on Venus and me and talking to me on Earth. Like, we're just two different species. He's over there in love and light, in the ethereal form of expression. And I'm over here going, I'm drowning. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think you've got it. That's what's stopping people from being, present, or, you could reword that as at peace, is that, yeah, they feel unsafe. And, that's so, nebulous and undefined and prevalent. And, it's always been like that. There's no concept of what it could be like otherwise.
Off to that feeling.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
We've numbed ourselves off to it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. It doesn't mean we don't feel it. It's still there.
No, we feel it, right? It's unsafe. And so, but when somebody, like Eckhart Tolle basically says, just be in the present. Why can't you be in the present? Why can't you be in the present?
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah,
I'm failing at being enlightened or say, right? But you don't even realize
right.
Like, you can't be in the present if you're afraid and unsafe.
And honestly, someone who suffers from it even more might have a better chance because they'd be like, I can't be in the present because I'm freaked out all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, we all feel that, but it's just so, it's just so chronic that we're so used to it that we can't actually put our finger on it.
No, I think if somebody's even more tense because they're screaming inside, I was that. Like, I know I hit it well, but that was me.
That was me. No, I think, if you ask someone on the day that, they broke up with their spouse and they got fired and their parents died, if that happened on one day and you're like, why can't you be present right now? You'd be like, because everything's falling apart. Right? It would be obvious to them why they can't be present.
Everything's falling apart, but ... I don't know if they would ever say, I feel unsafe. It took me a long time. I know it didn't seem like it took me a long time, but it took me a while to go, I'm just utterly unsafe. Like, to actually get into that inner child and realize, fuck, I'm just screaming inside because my inner child is just terrified and unsafe.
Oh, well, then maybe it's, someone who just got diagnosed with some terminal thing. Although,
no, I mean, that's like surrender. You're like, fuck.
Well,
right? How many people get diagnosed and go, and then like cancer's gone because they finally, released the burden of fear that, because right. what does it matter now?
Or maybe something that, might be terminal, but they don't know yet. So then there's, I don't know, crafting these bizarre examples to get someone who feels acutely unsafe. Why can't you be present? Well, because I feel unsafe. At least they would
Well, no. It's even that. Why can't you be present? You are present, but you're present in the unsafety.
There you go.
Right? You're present because currently, guess what? There's a tiger charging at you. I'm unsafe because
honestly,
there's a target charging at me.
During periods of acute unsafety, you're right. It is there is a clarity. That's not to say that's someone's desired state, but it is. There's clarity and presence there. That's true.
But like clarity and presence beyond 3-dimensional reality, like you go into this altered state,
right? It is, and
then
almost,
you're
almost
the fugue state,
flow state. Well, sure.
Or there's a fugue. I think it's a fugue state. I think it's fugue state where you're numbed off, and the only thing you feel is this tiger charging at you, and then there's action, but the action is almost not coming from your cognitive awareness. It's almost like a robotic, like reaction.
Sure.
You know, whenever martial artists memorize, their self-defense movements, right? The goal is, if somebody is fighting with you, because you go into that fugue state, you don't have to use your brain to fight. The body will just move in the self-defense mode, right? In order to have a recall system that is prepared for unsafety. But you're still in a fugue state responding to unsafety. But like that unsafety is physical and a physical threat. But deep down, I think the child that is screaming inside is still, what's the word? Not connected to this physical response. What's the word? Starts with an A, maybe.
Antithetical.
And maybe not antithetical, but like not correlated to
orthogonal.
Maybe orthogonal, yeah, to the physical response. So the physical response that we have taught ourselves to respond to, right, with whatever training and Tiger Saber-tooth, is almost like a acute reactionary state, but out of a physical space. But deep down, the child that is screaming inside is always screaming regardless of the tiger being there or not being there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's almost like there are two different unsafety scenarios. There's the true one that our system was designed for.
The acute ones.
Yeah, the acute ones. And then there's the steady one that never leaves its space because the child is in the crib going, I need milk, or I need my diaper change.
Yeah. I mean, I've read a lot of things, modern society just, keeps everybody in this, chronic state of
to
it.
Distract from the other state. I think there might be that.
I mean, chronic state of unsafety, and we're always anxious, and we're always pumped full of cortisol and everything, and we have that, if we're stuck in traffic, we have the same physical reaction as we do as if we were being chased by a tiger. Yeah, I don't know if that's new to the modern world, or if you go back 500 years and the indigenous peoples of America were feeling that, despite being probably less physical safe. There's no bears that are going to eat me here. I'm not going to starve to death. I don't care if it rains or not. Today, but back then that mattered more.
The indigenous people back then and still now are connected to the earthly elements,
right? And
so therefore, that pause that we're not able to take, in order to go, how does my body actually feel right now?
They were in touch with that.
Well, they always did that. They were always aware. How does their body feel right now? So if there is an influx for tension, they were acutely aware of the tension to go, what am I experiencing right now that is not in flow? Because at that point, their cognitive state knew that they were separated from the elements.
Right.
Like, we're not there. But if we could, like right now, I'm trying to have this episode in order to just recognize, okay, here's the warrior state and here's the king state, and at least start to differentiate between the two, right? Start to use this as a tool between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ideal state would be what Native Americans used to do. I'm hoping they still do it right now, is you are in complete connection to the universe through your elemental state of being, right? One of the episodes we talked about the mystery teachings, where if you're in connection to the all elemental systems, then you extract the fifth element, which is you in essence and oneness, right? And so I mean, heck, you could do magic there. Do you know what I mean? We are not in our regular 3-dimensional human state of being. We like quite literally magical beings that define the laws of physics, right? If you were in that state. But we can't even get to that state, much less even know what the heck I'm talking about here. Because currently we're just not even recognizing that we're splitting duality and we're stuck in the warrior state of fight or need to fight or need to be perceived a certain way or whatever. You know, I mean, we're in the warrior state. We can't even be in the state of recognition that we're not in the state of oneness. But once we reach the state of oneness, then you can start to feel the elemental, like actual elements around you. And then through that, you can actually ascend your frequency up to a higher space of being where the God essence that you're talking about, you know, you're starting to touch. Not that you are God. I'm not saying that one is God and one is not God. We're all God, but we cannot even touch the God essence of ourselves where,
right.
Because all of this is nonsense, right? This conversation is nonsense when you're there. So,
right.
Right. It is, you know, we're giving those moments by the universe to where when I say that state, I think most of us know what I'm talking about, right? And they're like hoping, you know, when you and I had our ceviche moment, or like you had your forest moment, or I had my I guess when I went to look in the mirror at myself, this is what it came to my mind on ayahuasca, right? And you know, we spent a week prepping, maybe even more, and then we fasted for the 2 days before, whatever it was. Like there was all this stuff, all this hoopla, all this surrender, all this. There's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get it wrong, you know, and so I have that. And then I had the fear on my heart condition. Like, do you know what I mean? There's like this nonsense. And then we enter into the ayahuasca experience, and it is what it is. Like, experience it is what it is with self. But with me, the crucial point was when I went to the bathroom, and it wasn't the bathroom portion of things, is when at the end I'm washing my hands and I look at myself in the mirror and I see myself. But I see myself as my higher self and not as the 3-dimensional version of me that is standing there. And my higher self goes, look at the nonsense you have to go through just to see yourself as oneness and love.
Yeah.
Right? The barriers of self that I have put into place so I will not touch this God essence of self.
Right.
And I went, and it felt so dirty and it felt so unnecessary that I thought, look at the nonsense that I had just put myself with this ayahuasca, this and the fasting and the stress and all of this, all because I choose not to feel my own oneness with self. And that realization that that's a choice. The game to participate and being afraid of this and having to fast with this and no salt here and no, just these human experiences that are nonsensical, including the participation in the ayahuasca ceremony, right? Because there was a reason behind it. All because I'm choosing not to feel my godlike essence of self that is already perfect. And then I thought, like it made me feel dirty. Like the experience made me feel dirty because I thought, well, that's nonsensical.
Right.
But everything, right? So if I'm there, this is nonsensical. Sitting here talking is nonsensical.
Right.
Hence, I still being here because in truth, there's no conversation to be had when you are sitting in front of the Buddha, entering gates of heaven and everything is perfect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
But to touch on that and to realize that there are moments of peace. And the only thing you're trying to do is not to disappear from this world, but simply feel the peace. And still choose to be in the world where you're exploring this 3-dimensional reality while you are in that essence of oneness with self and peace. Do you know what I mean? Like you and I are going through this struggle because we need this out and turn around in order to reach essence through peace and find a way to do that. Like there's this cognitive interpretation of step-by-step process that we're going through that is unnecessary, but we are laying this groundwork for humanity as this larger tool. But at the same time, our kids, their experience of this will be like, oh my gosh, mom and daddy sure spend a lot of time talking about nonsense,
right,
when they're watching this podcast, right? But the signature of our entire arc for however long we will have this podcast will be that.
Yeah.
The entire arc is here where we are, and here's the essence, and how do we experience life anywhere in between these points.
Yeah.
But again, if you're over here experiencing the arc of the whole thing, then you're like, oh, wow.
This seems very silly.
Huh?
Then everything else seems very silly.
Yeah, everything does seem silly. But think about the beauty that you can have with this awareness of, you can choose to have the king-like experience where nothing has to be silly. Everything is an expression of divine.
Right.
Like,
it's like
there's a version of king that ascends up.
Right.
And you are more than a king. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're saying God's self, king eventually ascends up, like the pharaohs in Egypt, right? The whole teaching of the pharaohs in Egypt is if you're a pharaoh, right? And the status of the pharaoh was more than just like, this is, I don't know, it's not what it is right now to be a king, right? The whole point of the pharaoh in Egypt was because he was of divine essence. He was
like a literal God on earth.
Yeah, God on earth. Well, they said God on earth because everybody is the God on earth. So I want to say that everyone here is a God on earth, right? Like all 8 billion interpreted of us, depending on time and frame that you're listening to this too. So we're all gods on earth, but the goal is to recognize our divine inheritance that we possess within us. Or if you don't want to talk about it from the God standpoint, just talk about the peace that we are. We are all peace at essence, right? And so when we reach that peace, and there's no unsafety, right? You have upgraded the frequency of unsafety into peace. It is the lotus bloom, right? When the lotus blooms out of Buddha, right? It's a Buddha or Krishna or Vishnu. Who is it that has the bloom?
It's a Hindu one. It's not Buddha.
Okay, whichever it is. I'm convoluting all religious teachings at this point. I'm sure it's offensive to some.
And everybody, it's our goal.
If the warrior's there, somebody's going to fight me on this one. Right. But when you allow your lotus to come out of your being and just to bloom into your essence, that is your divine interpretation of reality. And that is when you are at peace. And when you bloom your lotus, right, when your entire auric field opens, because that is your pranic force coming online and your entire chakra system is open and you're just like vibratory blooming, right? Like, I don't know if you can interpret that state or not. You actually ascend up. You kind of do this little hop. And then you are in that present/non-present state of oneness that is your solid reality, and you don't descend down into 3-dimensional spaces, almost like Jesus state, I guess.
I mean, I'm familiar with this quantum leap because it feels like I always thought that there would be some sort of transition up, like, oh, you get from here down here to up here, and it's kind of like da, 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 and then finally you're there. No, it is more of like you're here and then you're here.
Yeah, and the old way doesn't make sense.
And the old way doesn't make sense, and that doesn't mean, sometimes I said it before, I'll bounce back and forth between them, and there's nothing in between. It's just I'm in it or I'm not, and that's
Yeah. But that's the recognition of the two states, of the warrior and the king, right? You can and again, you can be in the warrior state for some, and you can be in the king state for others. But when you recognize yourself as a warrior and functioning out of the warrior space, and you train your psyche to transcend the tendency of being in lack and go, no, look, let me see myself that I'm functioning in this way, and let me join back into oneness. The more you do those jumps, right, the more you are in the king state period.
Yeah, when I've gone through those like hops back and forth, and sometimes it's just like couple seconds, it's bizarre, but it's like that's almost like the I interpret it as like this. It is the transition kind of through that that barrier, that level between right? It's like,
the barrier that causes you to be in a lower vibratory
yeah,
state.
it's like, yeah, sure, it would be nice if now I used to be down here and now I'm up here and then that's the end of it. But that hasn't been my experience with it. It's usually I'm down here and then I get a glimpse of up there, and then I get more and more frequent glimpses of up there, and eventually it's just I'm up there more.
Yeah.
And it isn't necessarily that I'm up there always forever, but it's easier to be there, and it happens more frequently.
Yeah, but it's the point of the warrior and the king discussion is to give a tool to where you can recognize one state of being to like quite literally a completely other reality of being.
Right. The way of being, the way of behaving, the way of thinking, the way of feeling, it's all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like I will reference this here, but I had several dreams that I was given where I was shown how humans descend into our essence, like me as Tanya, right? And I mentioned this before, but this is applicable now, so I'll re-mention it, right? It is, we are complete oneness with light, like just the most beautiful emanation of wholeness you can possibly imagine, which is ourselves, like, period. Like I cannot even, again, describe the words did not even come to showcase what we are. And then as we choose to take on our experience, our earthly experience, or if you interpret reality something other than an earthly human, you basically descend your frequency, right? You just kind of descend your frequency, and it drops and drops and drops until sooner or later you go through this layer that is belief system. And the belief system is Tanya. Like Tanya is this belief system. And once I just remember feeling this complete expansive nature of reality. And then I saw myself going through these layers. And the second I take on the definition of Tanya, it was literally like me taking on the definition of Tanya, I passed through this filter that is my belief system. And then I'm like, oh, and the density hits so hard. It is just it's almost like a ton of bricks falling on top of you, right? And all of a sudden, I'm in this human form, and I'm Tanya, and I have all of these beliefs that I realize are completely nonsensical, but that is what human is. Like a human have these nonsensical belief structures that keep us locked into this density in order for us to eventually choose to ascend up, right? The whole point of us is to do this. But the reason why we're here in the warrior state, and then I'm suggesting or asking us to hop up into the king, is it will teach us to start going through this barrier. Like it will start teaching us that hop. So that layer of bricks that are currently weighing us down, and we can feel that as this density, like, right, with this a huge amount of influx that actually is almost like pushing onto us in order to keep us in three-dimensional space and not as descended light. It
dissolves that a little bit.
Well, it keeps us locked into the belief system that is required in order not to have us hop out.
Right, but if you can peek through it,
well,
it dissolves it a bit.
Yeah, the more time you spend going, oh, look, here I am as a warrior, you let me choose the king. Here I am as a warrior, let me choose the king. Here I am as a warrior, let me choose the king. And the more time you make a choice, a cognitive choice, go from the warrior state of being into the king state of being, you're teaching your system, your frequency base to go, I'm okay ascending up past the brick layers.
Yeah.
I'm okay going up past the brick layers. And so the more your body then goes, it is okay for me to go bloop, and I'm in the outside of brick layer. Right. It's like quite literally almost like a Kundalini influx into the body. Like, I don't know if you ever had those. I know you had some during sex, but I don't know if you had any outside of sex, right? But when the Kundalini travels up your spine, it's almost like a bloop. I don't know. I use the word bloops a lot, but that is the best word I can use in English to describe the situation. It's like a bloop. And so then you bloop into a totally different interpretation of reality, right?
Yeah.
And so when you and I had the AI discussion and somebody's like, oh, the AI is over here and I gotta kill us, right? you're just over here in the dense brick structure, and you have created this dense brick structure, and you're living the dense brick structure from this choice.
Right.
And so when you bloop outside into the oneness and the wholeness, then you see everything through the lens, not of a problem, but of oneness. And so therefore the problems do not exist.
Right.
And the problems are only created when the duality is split. Do you see what I mean? Like when the higher frequency species have something that they're doing, it is not because that doing is a problem. That is the doing into the propagation of oneness. That is the essence of them. Does that make sense? So like your behavior is not out of lack, is out of me propagating myself into the essence of reality. It is, here's me and I'm complete. Like I am the immersed nature of interpretation of the universe. And I'm interpreting me in this action.
Right.
Split.
It's a completely different mindset.
There's no split.
Right.
And it's overwhelmingly beautiful, and it is extremely difficult to know and then know something other than that in our space. But the fact that we can, like I can touch on both of those spaces at the same time tells me that humans in three-dimensional space can also do that. Do you see what I mean? If I'm a human in my space, right? I came here to be a human. Then, and I'm able to touch that space, I know everybody else who's a human who can do that.
No, I mean, I've done it. If I can do it, believe me, everybody can do it.
Yeah. No, it's, I mean, right. Like, and obviously you and I have spent the last half of the podcast being in the higher state of being, and think about the difference that this state makes versus the conversation you wanted to have with me before about young. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to dip down, but I want you to see the frequency.
It's wildly different.
Right. Hence, I get very jolted out of the need for certain human experience that actually is counterproductive to what it is packaged as intent. Like I get very aroused by that. If somebody's packaging something for this, but actually packaged it for the opposite thereof.
They're selling it as that, but it's delivering the other.
Yeah. And I have huge influxes about that, right? Because I know what here is.
Like spiritual, religious type teachings like that?
Right.
Or?
Like back when you started this podcast and then you were with me in the lower state, and I was like, no, let's go up higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
And since then,
that's happened a lot.
No, but right since then we have ascended so many hops. Yeah. I don't know if you feel it, but we are at the completely different way of a vibratory sense.
Yeah.
Right. So where we are right now is the essence of the teaching, right? And where you were was disguising itself to be that, like Jung's interpretation, whoever has repackaged Jung has repackaged it to sell as, oh, this is the way you get to here. But in truth is somehow they are convolutedly doing the opposite. And I'm not familiar enough with their approach because it's like a mechanical structure that actually descends down into dimensionality. I don't know if you feel it or not.
I don't know.
If you can touch on it and see what it's doing to you, but that's what it's doing. It's like descending down into more frequency, into more density, like more bricks pile up as opposed to ascended reality. I have no, but right, like it's weird for me to say that there's sinister intent. There's just humanity, right? And so humanity does its best with what it has. But if you're lost in the warrior split of duality, you don't even know what you're doing most of the time, right? You're just trying to survive.
Right. Just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And safety.
Yeah. But no, I think that kind of wraps it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.